to the Holistic Clarities podcast featuring Karo-Lynn Reyes. This is your destination for real health on every level: physical, emotional, mental, energetic, and spiritual. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm thrilled to guide you through our second episode today. Visit us anytime at holisticclarities.com for more insights and resources. Today, we're going to talk about the inner child. And Karo-Lynn, I'd ask you to just jump in from a broad perspective and share with us, what is the inner child?
The inner child is actually a part of your emotions. And you decided somewhere in your life that the situations where you went through was at that moment too much for you to handle. And so what you do is that you cut off a part of your emotions, or you hide it, or you just don't want to acknowledge it, or you just push it away, or whatever you can do for not sensing or living through it. When you do this regularly, you create a sort of situation that you are distant from a certain emotion. And then often when you keep on growing, normally you do this as a child because you don't have the tools enough as a little kid to handle with all of the adult stuff around you and everything what happens with you. So, and then when you keep on doing this, at the end there is a sort of separation. And later on, it can even go to that point that you can't even remember anymore what happened with you. So an inner child is a part of you where you don't have contact with.
How does it manifest in our daily lives?
Normally, when you have an inner child, when you are touched by emotions, you start to act totally different than you would normally do. So your mental capacity to deal with emotions, so to regulate them or to make your reactions adult, that you are doing the right things with your emotions, when they are hurt or something, that totally disappears. So when you really are hurt in exactly that part what you were closing off, then that inner child is directly hit. And so the reactions from you are actually from this kid. So, and then you start to be very unadult and you start to be screaming or whatever you do. It is totally different when how you would normally react when you are in control, or you start to manipulate, or you start to, throw with plates or whatever you do. But I've heard many versions of it, but it is something out of control. And normally, when you look back, you feel that your energy was different, that it was actually a childish reaction. Most of the time, later on, when you get your control back, you start to be embarrassed about it, and that you also feel, wow, I was really reacting different or childish, or how is it possible that I even reacted like this? And the embarrassment about it makes it even more difficult, because then you have to start to excuse yourself, and you have to, and talk with the people, and I'm so sorry that I did this, but that even creates a bigger trauma.
And so it's clearly very important to connect with this inner child. For someone who's never done that before, where do they even begin? I think some of the examples you just gave might resonate with some of our listeners to say, oh, geez, there was a time when I acted completely childish and was embarrassed afterwards. For someone who's never even kind of heard of inner child work or inner child therapy, where do they even begin as far as approaching this?
Well, first you have to acknowledge it. The thing is that mostly you have been hiding this so much that you even really don't know that it is existing within you. So only by being constantly, suddenly hurt in a sort of emotionally hurt in a sort of situation, and that you start to react in this way without having any control. So, for example, if you start crying when you are hurt in your inner child, you start to cry that you can't even be comforted anymore. So it is like you just cry. And normally that would be different. So if you have many of those manifestations from your emotions, then you just first have to acknowledge, like, okay, maybe there's a part of me where I don't have contact with.
Mm.
Because the situation is that when we are going to that part, it is mostly a very lonely part of yourself, what was cut off of your adult existence and growing up as an adult existence for many, many, many years. So, and it is a sort of dump place where you keep on dumping all kinds of emotions, what you really don't want to live through. So, when we are going there in deep therapy or in deep meditations, you first notice that there is actually a child energy there. So you can even start to see yourself as a child there. And but that child is most of the time really disappointed in you or really angry or not trusting you, like, oh my god, and now suddenly you come and suddenly I have to talk with you while you are neglecting me for years and now you want to heal me? Come on, you left me in the dark for so many years and now suddenly I'm needed. So the willingness to cooperate is not always there. So first you have to acknowledge that pain and you have to talk to that pain, like, I'm really sorry that I did this. I'm really, if I knew that I have been doing this, I would never have been doing this. I
And
would
doing
never.
this meaning ignoring your needs, inner child of mine.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So you create actually a part of you what is not growing up
Mm.
by closing it off from your existence. It is not growing up. So it is actually a child energy where you keep on distancing yourself from because the pain what this child has you can't handle, and because it starts to react during the times and that you grow up and be an adult or a teenager adult, and that it starts to be like reacting all the time in this childish way, you even push it further away because it's embarrassing and it's so not, yeah, nice that you can have these changes of emotions. So the thing is, the acknowledgement is the first step. So the recognition that you have it first, then acknowledgement, and then you can start to transform it. So, and that is what I do with my clients, and it is really deeply healing. Yeah, it's amazing to see how people can heal from all of this. It is wonderful, wonderful
And
work.
everyone has these inner children.
Not everyone, no, no, no.
Oh, interesting.
And there are people who has them so much more than other people,
Mm.
but there are also people who were not sensitive at all. So they had already from the beginning of their lives a sort of that the first energy is mental energy, and those children can handle so much more. So in fact, what they immediately do is that they put a, a part of their mental energy in front of the people who are trying to hurt them. And so that is not coming really close to them.
Mm.
So most people who are very compromised in this situation are the very sensitive people.
Okay.
And especially when you are born as a sensitive soul into a family or a sensitive kid
Mm.
where you have parents with another energy, so that they can't connect with your sensitiveness and that they can't give you the recognition or the support as a sensitive child. So and then for those children it is really hard to survive, and because their senses, they need other coping mechanisms to deal with their emotions than what the parents can teach them. So they are very alone and very in the dark. Yeah, so it is not always the same.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And it seems important to recognize what the needs of the child are. So how do you begin to identify the unmet needs of these inner children that live inside?
Now, first of all, maybe the better question is what what traumatizes them. I have seriously clients who come in and I sense the inner child and they said, but I had such an unbelievable happy childhood. And I said, yeah, okay, but that is how you were sensing it or how you were feeling it or seeing it. But that can also already be out of your own defense mechanism that everything was amazing for you. But were you really recognized in what you really were as a kid? What you really felt? Did a person really give you the feeling, I got you, I know you, I see you, I really have you, and that your needs were seen and supported, and then suddenly they say, oh my God, no, my parents were so different, and I really needed to adapt myself to make them love me, and so that you are adapting to receive love or care, or that a person can talk to you, is already creating that you need to put a part of yourself completely aside, and that you have to shut that off to receive some safety, care, love from parents who are really different than you. So when people have for their idea very very happy childhood, that doesn't say that you are not traumatized. So that's why my clients are often coming very late in the 30s, in the beginning of the 40s, and that they start to understand something is wrong with me, because they are growing up and they need to be a grown up, but they still can be acting really childish in their emotions, and that happens so sudden that they don't have any control, like I already told about it, and then that happens maybe a few hundred times, and then they start to think there is something wrong with me, and then they come to therapists like me. So it's often very difficult for them to really acknowledge, because everything what you put in that inner child is more or less hidden in the closet, in the darkness and deep. So only by your own reactions you can start to think, okay, wow, maybe there is something.
And talk a little bit about the exercises, whether it's transcendental meditation. So, taking a big step back for our listeners, perhaps
Mhm.
something has resonated with them. Either they've been in inner child therapy before and they want to learn about your approach, or maybe they've never been in it, but they think, geez, this actually sounds a lot like me. What
Mhm.
happens next? So, how does a coach or therapist really guide a person to meeting that inner child, to kind of seeing how many there are?
Mhm. So what I learned is that I do things a little bit different, because I'm not bringing you immediately to your inner child, because when you are not treating a part of yourself very well, you need to start to understand first how you have to treat that part, and how you have to be a loving, caring person for a part that you were hiding or pushing away for decades sometimes. So, how I work is that I first work with you who comes in, and that we try to create a very loving, caring person who is really willing to give the love and the support and the care out of the heart energy to this inner child. Because when you come as a traumatized person who is, or a completely mental person, not mental, but with the mental energy first, to a very sensitive, traumatized part of you, there will be zero connection. So the inner child will not even come close to you, or keeps on hiding, because actually it's very scared for you. Because often you also have this inner critic voice inside of your system, in your brain, And so when you really listen to that voice that is always mumbling and rambling and always saying all kinds of stuffies, and when you really start to listen to that, then you start to understand that you are constantly criticizing things inside of you. And so actually this kid inside of you doesn't hear anything else than constant criticizing from something above. So you're not the safest person. So I create first a safe person, and then we go in. So, and how we go in is sometimes slowly, that I just let you connect for a few seconds with a feeling inside, and or I am creating a complete pathway where you will always be able to find that energy and that you can start to communicate with it. Or we are getting this energy out of the deep darkness, and we are building a very beautiful room inside of your heart where we can place that traumatized part of you, so that we already have it in a very loving and comforting and caring energy and surrounding and environment, where you can start to build up a connection. But it depends, because we also have, of course, clients with deep traumatized situations, very deeply hurt. So I often work with clients who have the unbelievable things happened in their youths. And those inner children are really deeply damaged. We have to be super careful in going and talking with them. And I need to even work so much harder to bring a very empathic, understanding person to those inner children who have been going through horror. I mean, think about what children can go through. And a lot of my clients went through everything. And healing that can take a long, long time. So what I do is that I first need to sense what I need to bring. And next to that, I have also a very much communication, always with the client's high soul. So that is also where I am different in working with my clients, because I let myself guide through your own high soul where I need to start, what I need to do, and when I can do things. Because a deeply traumatized person has a self-defending system, and that is just a very big wall. And it is a very big wall because the hurt, what you have been going through in your youth, it is just so much that if we would break that open in the instant, you have the chance of going completely crazy.
Talk to us a little bit, just to pause on the higher soul.
Yeah.
Tell it kind of tangibly, where is my higher soul when you're working with a client? How does that message translate? Because it seems very unique and really important.
Yeah, and it is a very good question. So your soul of you, Megan, is inside of you. So that is a part of the high soul, and the high soul is the sum of all lives which you have been living or going to live. So you have a high soul, what is a sort of, I always say, see it as a big birthday cake, and you slice it up, and all those slices, they are living lives. So in the quantum physics, you know that you can even live lives right now in separate dimensions, and that you live maybe 5 to 6 to 10 lives in the same time. So every single you, every single part of you from the high soul. So the Megan is not the high soul. Megan is a part of a high soul. And so all your parts are very much learning humans who need to create all of experiences next to the wisdom what the soul already has, and all the experiences and the wisdoms and all the lessons that you are learning are uploaded to the high soul. So, and the high soul is the sum of every experience and wisdom. So what I do is that I want to connect with the highest wisdom, because that is not you. So I need to go up and I need to connect with the highest soul, because that high soul has the sum of all of your experience and wisdom. And your high soul also knows that parts what will live next to you or in another dimension or in another time or place or whatever, that they need a certain experience from you to go on. So it is actually a very complex thing to start to talk with higher souls, and that this high soul is telling me what I need to do first, because other parts of your soul are needing this. And because you are not learning it, they are stagnating in their development too, and in their evolvement. So, and then we have to find out what you can handle in that certain time. So you are with me with your trauma, but I am working with all of the yous in all places through your high soul. So, and then your high soul needs to tell me, okay, which part is now super, super important that she starts to see and she starts to learn, so that other parts of my soul, high soul, my soul, can get her experiences too. Because everything what you learn right now is directly uploaded to that high soul, and that high soul divides that wisdom immediately to other parts. So it's a complex thing.
Truly. And how does it come to you? Is it verbal? Is it imagery? When you're speaking to another person's high soul, how does that dialogue look from your perspective?
Yeah, so I'm always talking with my own high soul too. And what you see me doing is I look up, and then first what I do is this, and that is the sign that I start to connect. And so if people think, why does the woman always look up? Well, because every wisdom what I'm telling here is coming from my high soul too. So I'm just getting it. Yeah, and I'm just spreading it. That is what I do. So, but a high soul doesn't communicate in words. It is an energy field where you can tap into. So, and that energy field needs to be translated. And so it is not that your brain are translating this very much, because your brain would not be able to really handle it. But it is more that it is a sort of wisdom what you create through lives, that when you sense that energy, that you understand what it is.
Okay.
So people who are working with me, weirdly enough, they hear me talking a lot about understanding, and that is a mental process even. So, but it is unbelievably important to understand what you feel. So often when I ask a person, so what do you feel? And then they can feel what they feel, but they can't put a word on it. So, and that is what I start to teach first. So a lot of higher souls, and because we have old souls living in star seeds, they are very developed souls. They have this power of communication. So they are sensing, but their brain, their 3D brain, is blocking the information totally. So what I do is that I more or less step out of myself, and I just connect, and I am that energy. And then I can really understand it. So I'm a ninth dimensional soul, and I am not often talking about this, because it seems so, but I really am. So, and a ninth dimensional soul is so fluent and so transparent that you don't have an own ego anymore. And you are actually, you learn to be a total nothing. So, when you are a total nothing, you can be everything. When you are coming with no ego and no own perspectives into a complete wisdom, then you can connect with the total wisdom because you are an absolute open, objective channel without any own opinion. But you need to translate what you sense.
And I
And
think we need to pause there
okay,
because, no, for our listeners to really let that sink in, what you just said, because this is a huge opportunity for everyone to ask you questions as you can tap into this infinite
yeah,
wisdom perfectly.
yeah,
And so, in coming up with podcast topics, there's quite a few that we can choose from, but there really are. But I'd like us, thank you for that explanation, Karo-Lynn, and the really important piece about the higher soul. I'd like to go back to why it's so hard for people to connect with their inner child. Because it is. I mean, there's first dialoguing with them, you have to have the stability for them to trust you, but then you have to really love them. And isn't it the most important? We hear it's so important to love yourself before you love others. But
yes,
in this instance, with the inner child, it actually is. You can't really love until you have learned how to love yourself, but it's very hard to do. Could you speak to
it
that?
is. Yeah, because you feel that that inner child is more a burden than something what you love. So the burden is that you have something inside of you what you, if you are a little bit of aware, that you really can sense and what scares you. So you have a sort of hole in your system and you just know that something is there. So a lot of people are just really scared for their own feelings. So when you need to start to connect with that, people are like they feel that they need to go over the mountain of Himalaya seriously because you're hiding this feeling for your whole life, and then suddenly you need to start go there and connect there
Yeah.
and even love. So that is a step that is a little bit further. Um, but love is light. And love is the most healing and transforming energy what you can bring to yourself. So when you keep this part of you in the darkness, it will never heal. Only when you can bring love there, you can bring light there. And by your life, your love, you can start to transform and heal that part because that part was never loved. So that part was treated wrong, needed to be hidden because you couldn't handle the situation. So often it is completely deprived from light and love. So that is the biggest thing, bringing love and light.
You can almost picture it like a child in a dark cave.
Yeah,
And so you wouldn't go in and immediately kind of blast it with light, but it seems like it's a gradual process of building the trust and stability. And then comes the love.
yeah, because the most weirdest thing is because when you work as a light worker and you go down in other dimensions lower than you to help people, souls, to really start to see what they did wrong and that you as a light being brings light so that they can transform. But how they really act is that they are completely right. So they did nothing wrong. So they start to feel that they are the light and that you are the darkness. That you are so dangerous, and then you come with your light, trying to tell them and convince them that they have been seeing everything wrong in their whole lives, soul, as a soul, of course, And then suddenly they have to trust you that you are the light and that you bring healing. Well, this is exactly the same what happens within you. So this a little child lives, so this part of you, this inner child, lives so long already in its darkness that it started to create an own truth by itself. Like whatever you do, I'm right. And then suddenly you come with light and oh my goodness, and finally I see you and finally I can heal you, and then this inner child thinks, yeah, right. So why am I need to be healed and why don't you need to be healed? You are doing this, not me. So you have an immediate contradiction. She thinks she's total right. Because you were the one who completely were hurting her and leaving her and doing everything with her. And then suddenly you come with, oh my goodness, I can heal you and bring light. Yeah, so that is a trust situation and what needs to be created and built from the first step. So that's why it is so difficult.
And where does one begin? Is it designated time listening to what this inner child might want to share? How do you balance the boundary, like any child, of containing what sometimes can be an outburst of emotion, or up until this point, if one hasn't recognized their inner child, it just looks like emotional outbursts.
Yeah.
How do you kind of balance containing a child as well as taking incremental steps towards gaining that trust so that it can feel the love?
Yeah, so at this moment, I'm working with a beautiful soul in a very young body still. And he told me last week something amazing. He said, in the mornings, I feel my sadness. And I said, why? And he said, when I wake up. I said, but why? Because my brain is still sleeping. So my brain can't control it. And I said to him, wow, that is a pathway, right? So actually, you should start to talk with your sadness in the morning when your brain is not awake yet. So he was telling me in his words, the moment that you don't have a mental control, you can start to really sense inside of you what is hidden within you. And if that is in the morning when your control and your ego is not really very much present yet, then these are the moments that you are just closing your eyes. And I was teaching him also, most of my clients, that you are stepping in with a little you through your third eye, and that you are like 2 centimeters, and that you just visualize that you're doing it, because visualization is the biggest thing in this. And I always say, listen, can you see a cow in a meadow? Can you see it now in front of you? Oh yeah, I can see it. Okay, so then you can visualize. So visualize that you are this big and step in. And then you walk through your brain and go to that spinal cord, and then you just go down and start to sense, where do I hide this feeling? And then somewhere suddenly, because you are really searching for it, your body will start to react. And then you feel a pressure in your heart or in your belly or whatever. But somewhere this feeling knows that you start to enter. And that will react because, whoa, what are you suddenly coming to do? So that will bring a knot somewhere in your system. And then you already know, my emotion is there. So what I always let people do is that I let them connect with the left hand, so the senses side, with that place on the body where they feel that starts to react. So, and then I just say, send the energy through the heart, through the hand to that place, and let that inner child feel that you're trying to connect with it. And then you try to approach it. But stay on a distance, because you don't overwhelm this feeling. And then you just stay on a distance, and then you just start to ask the questions. Why are you feeling like this? What did I do to make you feel like this? What happened with you? And can I help you? Can I be here for you? Can I support you? Can you please talk to me? I want to help you. And then in between the questions, you are just silent. And then suddenly, your brain will start to understand things. So you get an energy, and that will be put in words. And I always say the first thing what pops up in your mind, just say it. That might be a truth. And that is how you start the connection. But try to do it in your most inactive mental energies. So before you go to sleep, I often let my clients buy a sort of cuddly thingy, a bear or whatever, and then I just say to my clients, listen, by that, what you really feel, that it is connecting with you. So back in the days when I was in training in this, I had a hippo, and it was a pink hippo with a yellow bathing suit. With a big hippo, pink, like this. And, that was my body, because I needed to train. But what we did is that we were sleeping with that cuddly thing and in our arms, and we were just giving that stuffed animal the energy of, you are my inner child, and I have you in my arms. You are safe. So another thing, what you can do is that you find a picture from yourself, and you ask yourself, what age am I there? And then just give me a number. And on the count of 3, I will have the number. And then you are 5. So find a picture from yourself when you're 5, put it on your screen, on your phone. Every time when you open your phone, you see this kid. And then you really try to connect with it. So because that energy stays with that child too, inside of you, that inner child. So when you talk with your hippo in a yellow bathing suit, your inner child knows that you're talking to her. So we have massive kind of tools to enter the world of that inner child and start to heal it. But the most profound thing is that we go in with a healed person who really can love and bring light, and who can convince that child in the darkness that he is really love and light, and that he was making that unbelievable mistake to keep that part in the darkness. So you really have to acknowledge immediately how wrong you were. So, and that is the beginning of the healing. But it is a process, and it takes time. But it is very healing. I see my clients transforming so much. It's beautiful to see, really. I see the most beautiful things. Yeah, I love it.
No, it's profound. And I think we can wrap here, because this is a very important topic. And I hope that folks will really listen. And if anything really was pertinent to them, that they'll explore this themselves as well. So thank you so much, Karo-Lynn.
Thank you, Megan. You are very nice to talk to.
Excellent. We'll see you all on our next podcast, number 3.
Let's do it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.